today in culture, in conflict and resolution, the topic will be on language. And cultures in conflict and resolution is all about bringing up topics that people in cross-cultural relationships of any sort can discuss and hope to resolve some issues by bringing these things up and realize that there is a difference. And today I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about the difference between rote and route. And it was a British person interviewing an American. And I thought to myself, I once had a girlfriend. And that sounds like a story, and it is. I once had a girlfriend who is not my wife now, who mentioned that Americans called it route, and she said, what's that all about, having a route when it's a root? And I said, is it part of a tree? She laughed a little bit, but I'm not so sure if she was bothered, because I pointed out that there was no real wrong or right, even though in her opinion clearly there had been a wrong and a right, and a way to pronounce stuff. And these things can be grating on any relationship if you believe there is a right way and a wrong way of speaking, or virtually anything in that relationship. If there is a right way and a wrong way, then you create issues. And if there is a right way of speaking and a wrong way of speaking, then there can be enormous issues. Near where I live, there's a community called Aloha that happens to be spelled the same way you would pronounce aloha in Hawaii. Now, I'm probably not pronouncing it properly for a Hawaiian when I say aloha, but that is closer than aloha. Now, in aloha, if you call it aloha, long-term residents tend to get bothered when you call it aloha. And in Hawaii, if you say aloha, although I've only heard this happen once or twice, they get quite bothered if you say aloha rather than aloha. Now, I suspect almost everybody who goes to Hawaii knows to pronounce it aloha. So that's not nearly as a conundrum as aloha in Oregon. But all that being said and done, you need to realize that there will be differences in speech. And you need to discuss how people feel about it before it becomes an issue. And it becomes one more nagging things that drives a relationship apart, because sometimes it's just another nail that broke the camel's back. In London, you also have places like you run into where they say Leicester, and I remember being on the tube many times and seeing people, Americans clearly, but maybe North Americans or somewhere, and they would be trying to navigate their way around, and you would ask them what they're looking for, and they would say Leicester Square, and you would say, oh, that's pronounced Leicester. Now, you wouldn't correct them, you would just say, oh yeah, you mean Leicester Square? And you wouldn't. And a British person, a very proper British person, might get annoyed that you didn't spend the time to find out how things are pronounced. I remember when we first came to Oregon to visit once, or Portland to visit once, for a long time actually, pronounced the science center called OMSI, or Oregon, I can't even remember. I said OMSI as the acronym, but everybody who lives in Portland calls it OMSI. And why you would call it OMSI instead of OMSI, I don't know. And it's all caps, so it's clearly an acronym, and I can't even remember. Oregon Museum of Science and Industry. I think that's what it's called. But if you didn't know, you wouldn't realize that it's an acronym, and if you realized it as an acronym, you would think you pronounced it as an acronym, which is you pronounce all the letters separately. But not everything is like that. And for years, I pronounced it OMSI, even though I would realize after I said it, oh, I should have said OMSI, because people would give you this strange look and then finally figure out what you were saying, because it would trigger in their mind what you meant, where they actually thought OMSI. And when you say OMSI, they know where it is. And when you say OMSI, they're like, I'm not sure. What do you mean? And then sometimes you'd have to say, oh, I meant OMSI. And I suspect I still do this. And I've just become so used to this that I can't even remember how I am screwing this up. And my wife will continually question why I can't remember what is the American pronunciation or the American word for a situation versus a British word. And I frequently can't remember. I mean, I can remember Americans say toilet. No, Americans say restroom. Where a British person says a toilet. Or far less often a WC or something like that. It's almost always toilet. So you got to remember that these language differences can cause issues, and we might not even realize them, and it's just something to talk about. This is Michael Epley, Cultures in Conflict and Resolution. Go out and be a person of peace today. Talk to you tomorrow or the day after or sometime.